The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
Hi, this is Vanessa Marshall. I play Hera Syndulla on Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to the Secrets of Star Wars podcast. May the Force be with you always.
You're listening to the Secrets of Star Wars, episode 80.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hey everyone, I'm Father Andrew Kinstetter, aka Father Fett, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away, including the deeper themes and meanings. Just a reminder, of course, you can get your own official Secrets of Star Wars t-shirt or coffee mug, sticker, magnet. You can find all sorts of fun stuff, and they all encapsulate our philosophy of finding hope in a galaxy far, far away. And you can find all of those options at sqpn.com/merch. So there's some really fun stuff out there, so go check it out. Also, of course, we have a new way to join the StarQuest fan club mailing list. So this is the email newsletter, and you can text StarQuest to 66866. So that's text StarQuest, all one word, to 66866. Also, of course, be sure to share the podcast on Twitter or Facebook or your favorite social media to get us seen by more people. And please leave us a review. We love to hear your thoughts and love to find what you find interesting about what we're doing. And it also helps us get seen by more people. So love to see those reviews come through. So please do that and help us share the podcast with more people. Today we are discussing the 7th episode of The Bad Batch. This is entitled Battle Scars. And joining me on the panel tonight are Angela Cialana.
Hi, y'all.
Hello. And second and finally this evening is Bib Fortuna. I mean Mike Creevy.
Hello. Should I tell them real quick what that reference is to?
Yeah. You mentioned it last episode in the podcast, but for those who are completely confused, please do.
Well, and it's an update. So, long story short, every time I go to the kiosk, the lunch meat kiosk at the grocery store here, they don't call it out, unfortunately, which would be great. But you type in like your name, and I got so sick of just typing my name all the time that I was like, let's make this interesting, because they actually print it out and stick it on the lunch meat when they give it to you, so it's a little souvenir. So I've been Bib Fortuna. Last time I was Salacious Crumb. So, and I think Angela was especially disappointed to find out that they don't actually yell it out, because that would be awesome. So
yeah, like at Starbucks where you have to verbally tell them. So I was like, if you're verbally telling them, do you have to spell out salacious for them? Because that would even be more funny.
I never planned it ahead of time. It's whatever comes to mind. So
Nice.
Yeah.
I used to do that at Starbucks, but my problem was my favorite character, especially when I would do that at Starbucks, was Jason Solo. And so I would say Jason, and they would spell it inevitably Jason and not Jacen like the character.
Of course.
So I was never really, I wasn't quite as as fun and crazy as you are, Mike. So, but I should start doing that again.
It is pretty fun. It's just to see what like secondary or tertiary, whatever's after tertiary character will be coming up in your mind at the moment. So,
have you ever gotten anyone to like comment on it?
Not yet. And to be fair, the first 2 times I did it, I just simply put it in as Lord Vader. So that was, I think they may have just been like, okay, dude, just let me cut the lunch meat, So.
But do you have to go in there and say, I'm here for a pickup for Lord Vader or Fortuna?
I should ask for it and just put it in with that name, like say it out loud, because they just, if you're not there, if you're there when they finish it, they'll actually check it and hand it to you, and see it. Sometimes though, if I'm a little late, if I'm running around the store, it's just in the little
the pickup area
tray.
Yeah.
So that's but I get the tag though. I should save them all. I think I'll do that from now on. It'll be a little souvenir.
Oh, that's great. Okay, well, let's jump into the Bad Batch, and this particular episode, I thought it was a good moment to move the plot forward, but of course, what did you guys think before I share my own thoughts?
Well, I did laugh and I cried, but at the same time, I thought this was maybe the most predictable episode of the series. Not in a bad way. I don't mean to knock the show or anything like that. But I think a lot of us kind of felt like we knew where this was going. Definitely Mike had an inkling along with others, apparently, that Rex would have been the person that was contacted about these rogue clones. But as far as just the episode overall, I did enjoy it. I thought that there were some good writing moments in there, and I'll get to that, of course, in our discussion. But it was good to see Rex and kind of get this bridge from, when we last saw him with Ahsoka, and then bridging the gap as far as his journey into the rebellion. So that was exciting.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, well, it's interesting. I didn't necessarily have any feelings about whether or not, I did think it was going to be Rex that the Martez sisters had been talking to, but I didn't necessarily assume that we'd see him in this episode. So that was kind of cool. But and we can get into this a little bit later, but I was talking to you two before the show about, I kind of wish there had been a little bit more of, when you said predictability, Angela, absolutely. Seeing him sit there with the hood on and everything, like it was a pretty obvious thing that it was him at that point, and like the clone trooper, whatever it is, the armor on the arms and stuff like that. But it was cool to see him for sure. And I don't know. I think it would make sense though that it was either going to be him or, well, somebody that had been contacted at the very end of one of the previous two episodes needed to show up in this one, because it's like we can't go like 3 episodes with, okay, who are we talking to out there? Like, this is getting annoying. So that was nice just to kind of have it some answer to some question.
I have to say, for me, I guess, I know you said, Angela, that it was predictable, and I agree with you, but I also disagree with you. And I disagree in the sense that this was not how I expected the inhibitor chip sequence to go. I expected Wrecker's chip to kick in some pivotal battle, in some, like, more high stress situation, and then my mind was going down the road of, like, then he would capture the group and bring them to Crosshair or something. I expected a little bit more high stakes when the inhibitor chip kicked in, and so they play up the danger that he's posing to Omega in that sense, but it wasn't quite as high stakes, I guess, as I was expecting. But I'm happy with kind of where they went with it. I mean, I think everyone who's watching the show has been like, just kind of, waiting on pins and needles as Wrecker's headaches kept getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah. I think, well, just to kind of touch on that, I think what they did was to create a sense of stakes more in this episode, is that they've been working for all this time, right, on not only his headaches, but also his hesitancy towards having anything done to him, right? Like physically, whenever Tech had something, with the inhibitor chip before, or, how he was constantly talking about he was in charge of what, I like to blow things up because I like to blow things up. We talk about that line a lot. But I think, even within this episode, he showed a lot of hesitancy continuously up until, that moment where it really kicks in, the inhibitor chip. And so I think that they used that well, at least to start heightening the stakes for us, as the viewer. So I did appreciate that, at least. It would have been kind of jarring if, just Wrecker, for example, it's interesting. He is this guy who just kind of goes right into battle, right? And he just starts knocking people out. But then outside of those situations, he is this kind of like hesitant person, right? Like he he doesn't like heights, and he kind of like tiptoes around those kind of things. And so, I thought that was just interesting how they created that as part of his character, and then they used that to kind of make it an even more difficult journey for him to get the inhibitor chip out.
Yeah, there was a slow buildup which added it's added tension in the last number of episodes. So
right.
I can totally see what you're saying there. One of the other comments that I just had kind of overall was I thought the name of the episode was appropriate, Battle Scars, and I loved the dual nature of that of the planet that they go to being littered with the scars of the Clone Wars, with all the Republic cruisers and all the ships that were destroyed. But then also, of course, the battle scars of the removal of the inhibitor chip that they're all going to have now on their heads, as kind of, again, a signal of what was done to them and the war that they left behind and the war that they're kind of entering into.
And I think a third aspect of that name is also what Rex is describing to them, like his mental battle scars of seeing what the inhibitor chip can do. And that really scarred him. So I thought also of that meaning as well.
I know this is totally jumping to the end of the episode, but I was really impressed with Omega's ability to recognize that Wrecker was not in control of himself, and to just, like, at the very end, she kind of offers him the caramel corn, which is what I've been calling it, but as a token of, like, it's all good, I don't have any resentment or unforgiveness in what you did, because she recognizes that he wasn't in control. And so I thought that was it just impressed me, because I figured she would have been more hurt, perhaps, or maybe she will be, I don't know, but
she, throughout the series, she's expressed the understanding of what it is. And even when, Crosshair was really turning on them, she had that moment where she was sitting with him, like, I know what you're going to do is not completely you. It's not completely your fault. So, I really want to know more about her and what she was doing on Camino, because I want to know how much she knows, like how she knows about the inhibitor chip. She knows what it can do. So what else does she know about how the clones were made? I mean, she was the medical kind of with the medical droid the whole time. So that really has piqued my interest as we go on.
And we got another tantalizing tidbit on her, is that she was never equipped with an inhibitor chip.
She's pretty proud of that too.
Yeah, but it
I
just
forget exactly how she said it. She's just like, she's like, not me.
I mean, I can totally relate. That's like, you all have to go through surgery, but I'm good. I don't have to do that. But it continues to beg the question of, like, what was her purpose? What was she doing on Camino? Why did they clone her? And then why did they clone her and not install something where they could control her? So I think we'll continue to see that mystery play out as we continue through the series, though, for sure.
Well, and it's near the beginning, so but I just thought it was interesting how, like, even some of the subverting of expectations, because, like, she goes over and she's looking at Rex, and she says, she just looks at him for like 2 seconds. She's like, "You're a Generation 1." And
exactly.
He's like, "How did you know that?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, what's the mystery?" And then it's basically just because he's like old.
He's old.
He's got wrinkles on his forehead.
It was cute, because I was like, "Well, yeah, maybe there's more to her for sure, but it's not." They love keeping us guessing what that is, I think.
And she's got just this innocence too about her, which is also really fun to see play out.
Yeah.
Let's jump into the recap, because we'll hit a number of those things, of course, as we go along. The episode starts off with, we see Clone Force 99 has decided, of course, to become kind of mercenaries for Sid, and so they are on a mission to capture a lizard whom Omega has named Ruby. I kind of want to know the story behind that, but they didn't actually give us the story behind that. But they successfully have stolen this lizard from someone who stole it from someone else, and again, bigger story there, but that we may never know. And they're in this space battle, and they of course escape, and Echo fixes the hyperdrive, and so they get back to Ord Mantell so they can deliver the lizard to Sid and get paid, which of course causes some issues because they don't get paid very much, and they are acquiring quite the debt with Sid, which is really kind of, I mean, some of it is totally understandable, but Wrecker and Omega are running away with the credit card.
Like, how much does that snack cost?
Apparently 7 credits per bucket, because I think they get 2 buckets. So, yeah, but, I was going to say, when it comes to Sid paying them, it really, we've kind of gotten these little seeds ever since we've met Sid that, with their interaction with her, that they're like not really exactly sure about her, but they're just kind of going along. And now I think we're at the point where especially Hunter is really kind of saying like, hey, is this what we should be doing? Should we be dealing with Sid? Is this really in our best interest? Or are we just kind of stuck here? What's going to happen? So I'm really curious how their relationship with Sid is going to progress with coming episodes.
I think it could go a number of ways, because on the one hand, we know that Echo heard of her through the Jedi connection, and so there's at least an inherent, they trust the Jedi, who maybe didn't fully trust her for information, but trusted her enough that they were willing to go to her. But then she also knows who they are, so she's kind of got him in a tough spot, that if they decide to, especially if they decided to just leave without paying back the debt, I mean, she could spill the beans and tell the Empire about Clone Force 99. And yet I think you're right too, that Hunter is very clearly, and that was something he talked with Rex at the end of the episode about, is like trying to figure out what's best for his squad, which at that point is not joining Rex and kicking off the rebellion. Not quite sure what's going on there yet, but yeah, the relationship with Sid is tenuous at best. So, but they also need the money, and they need kind of that sort of thing. So, yeah, hard to say, but she is kind of a very interesting character. I really liked the whole episode. I felt was sort of framed around Wrecker and Omega's friendship. So the Mantell mix, the snack, the caramel corn, was something that just, like, I could relate to, as a kid, like that was, that built-in tradition. And, Wrecker and Omega are the kids that are asking dad for permission to go get their ice cream snack or their, popcorn. But I liked how they continued to kind of focus on the relationship between those two, which I think, again, added to the tension of what happens later when the inhibitor chip kicks in for Wrecker. And that's when, so at this point, that's when Rex arrives. And Mike, I was listening to the episode last week, and I loved all of your guys' guesses. And I have to say that for me personally, I mean, I think my gut reaction was probably like everybody else's, is that I was expecting Ahsoka, only because of the Trace and
actually.
Oh, you weren't? I was expecting it because of the Trace and Rafa connection.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the one that was the biggest question mark for me about thinking it was Rex, because I still don't really know how he knows them because of the Ahsoka novel and the timeline thing that I was going over with Thomas, because I think you read that novel, right?
Yep.
Yeah, because I don't know, I guess somewhere in there she must have connected them.
Yeah, they're involved in the rebellion. I mean, that's what they say they're getting that droid for, right, in the last episode. So we know that eventually Rex ends up with the rebellion. So to me, it makes sense. That's probably how they connected.
There's just a bit of untold story there, because I don't remember, and maybe Angela, maybe you'll remember, at the end of Clone Wars Season 7, I don't remember Trace and Rafa being, involved in that kind of way yet.
No.
So so then there's definitely something that led them to get connected with those kind of people before this episode.
Yeah, I think Ahsoka talked to them about her perspective on what's right and what's wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'm thinking that planted a seed in their minds and hearts to really consider fighting for people like them, rather than just fighting to stay alive and fighting for themselves, which was what they were doing before.
I was just wondering here, because with Rex, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole with that, but I was just made me think. I have some tabs I'm saving for later because I just realized this is kind of cool. But you guys know the whole thing about, of course, and I think we've talked about this before, but the older guy with the white beard in Return of the Jedi,
right,
who has no real significance in the actual plot of the movie, and was not in any way, shape, or form Rex originally. Mm-hmm. But I think his official name is Nick Sant.
Yep.
Right, because he looks like Santa. Like but I don't know if you noticed this, but it looks like some of the Forces of Destiny stuff. Like they really made it subtle, but it's him. It's Return of the Jedi and everything. It's that guy.
Right.
But they have, when he's shooting, he's got the clone armor plates with the white and the blue on it. So I think they canonized that is Rex.
That was my understanding. Is that
and they were trying to do that with Rebels,
that.
Right? With the helmet. So okay, so he is. I mean, it's like obviously he's involved with the Rebels. We see that in the show Rebels, but he's not too involved with the Rebels when they find him. Living with the other guys out on that old walker, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe I guess maybe he gets just battle weary from it, and ducks out, and then comes back in as the classic 80s thing. Like they're pulling me back in after retirement kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But so but that's just really cool to see him. Like we've said so many times with this era, I'm just so happy about to finally see canon stuff right here, at the very beginning of all of it. It's just a really cool time to explore,
mm-hmm.
And I know Andor will be in here too, or maybe a little later, but
so will Kenobi, because we've never really got a story of the origins of the rebellion other than knowing mm-hmm. certain key players that mm-hmm. eventually, kind of go that way. Bail Organa for one, and Rex and those sorts of people. So,
and they touch on it in Solo a little bit, but that not much. Mm-hmm. It's vaguely in the background.
Yeah, even in Rogue One, it feels like there's still so much more organization that could be done mm-hmm. with the rebellion. So it's it's not quite at the phase when we really meet them in Episode 4. Right. So, there's a whole lot of the way they kind of imagine it is there's a whole lot of like just seeds, here mm-hmm. and there. And maybe Rex somehow got connected with Trace and Rafa through some kind of, small thing that people are trying to work towards.
Mm-hmm.
So it's grassroots.
Particular sectors and stuff. Like even he said too, I mean, later on, just about the Republic's not all gone, or it was something along those lines, right? That he's doing what he can in these, like he's committed to these sort of smaller wins, rather than the big thing.
He made the comment that, I mean, like that he's meant to defend the Republic, and so he's going to continue to do that. And...
Right. Or that was it was like Hunter said something like the Republic's gone, and he's like, not all of it.
Yep.
Yeah, it was something like that, so.
And that totally fits with him leading and being in part of the rebellion, because the Empire, even though that's what replaced the Republic, that's not the Republic,
right? And Trace and Rafa weren't just from any planet, right? I mean, if they were to connect with Rex in some kind of mini rebel cell, like it makes sense that because of where his involvement with the Republic formerly, and then where they were living, right, that they would somehow get connected versus if they were in some random distant planet somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tatooine. Of course, that ends up becoming important, but
Tatooine is like the. I'm going to go on a limb here. Tatooine is kind of like it's like the Jerusalem or the Israel of the Star Wars universe. It's just this, like, it shouldn't really be incredibly significant forever. but it just always is. You know, like it's just there's like this crux point of all these important things that happen there. There's a mystery, divine providence. You
know. Back to Sid's Cantina. We get some dialogue there with Rex talking to Clone Force 99, and thankfully the Empire has Rex listed as dead, so this helps him kind of in his work as did you I thought you were going to say something.
No, I'm just gonna it just opens up so there's a lot of things that are a lot easier if they just think you're dead. Like,
yep.
You know, like they're not even really officially sure Obi-Wan's dead. You know, the way that conversation kind of goes, but yeah,
well,
Rex,
they tend to think more Jedi are dead than are actually dead.
Yeah.
So
wishful thinking for them. Yeah.
Kanan Jarrus being one. I'll say his name now because he's sort of gonna come up. Cal Kestis. Do you guys know that name?
From the game, I haven't played it. I've seen I've seen some stuff on YouTube because it's some pretty cool cutscenes and stuff. But
he's the main character of Jedi Fallen Order, the video game. And the reason that's important for our discussion here is the planet that he starts in the game is Braca, and Cal is actually a member of the Scrappa Guild, or he's working for the Scrappa Guild as he is hiding out from the Empire.
That's
cool.
Exciting.
Okay.
So, yeah, kind of a fun connection there.
Do you think we might see him in this?
Well, so that's one of the thoughts that I've seen floating out there is that we could see a younger Cal.
Huh. I don't know. I'm trying to think if they've ever had a video game character like start there and end up in the show. I mean, because we've had all the things of like live action to animation to live action, like that, those arcs. That'd be kind of cool. I don't know of anybody.
So the only one that I can think of, and there's not a whole lot of video games that have come out since Disney purchased Lucasfilm, but the one that I'm thinking of is sort of a very obscure thing. Is Revan. So if you know Darth Revan, he was one of the characters of Knights of the Old Republic, which was pre-Disney. Right. The name Revan shows up in like the visual dictionary for either The Force Awakens or The Last Jedi or one of those.
That's right.
As a name of like a Sith Legion. So, so it's ambiguous enough whether that name was meant to be the same Darth Revan as the character,
right?
But I think
there was a deleted scene that was supposed to be in Clone Wars where they were going to establish him as like a Sith ghost of him, but it didn't. Like they had it in pre-production or something, but they didn't go through with it.
Sounds
I saw somewhere. But I just thought too, I guess would the Dark Troopers count from Mandalorian?
Because they were. Yep.
Yeah, I was going to say that crate dragon whole storyline
with the pearl. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that'd be neat to see him in there if he shows up.
Yeah. Well, and it would do good to just get people introduced to him and then lead people to then play the video game too.
Sure.
I've only actually played it for just a little bit, so I've played the opening sequence on Braca, but other than that, I wasn't able to get too much farther, just with everything else going on. So yeah, I mean, all of this is good because it gets people more exposed, and then if you want to learn more, you can always jump into the other aspects in the video games and learn more. So, so we ultimately Rex will take them there, and of course the reason that Rex is going to take them to Braca is that they have this whole dialogue in the cantina about the inhibitor chips because Wrecker's complaining about headaches again, and Rex gets very, very defensive and is nervous and calls them all ticking time bombs because he knows what the inhibitor chip would force them to do. And of course, we've seen this in season 7 of the Clone Wars.
Yeah, and I was going to say, that was the smart reason why, or that was, let me start over. That was why this was smart for them to insert Rex into their storyline, because we as the audience have been operating under the assumption, I think, that of what the Bad Batch's assumption is, which is, oh, we're fine, right? Like, we don't have to worry about those inhibitor chips, because when we were seeing all the other regs following Order 66, nothing happened to us. But it raises the stakes when we see Rex like getting ready to, you know, he's with his hand near his holster. And that shows us, right, like how serious this is, because it's kind of a reminder for us who have seen the Clone Wars, right? And we've seen what's happened. So instead of us just kind of being with the Bad Batch through the series, and then one day, you know, something like you were saying, Father, like maybe in the heat of battle, like one guy, Wrecker, maybe just flips, you know, just turns. And it's like, whoa, that would be so jarring. And it would seem to come out of nowhere. But I think what they did very well is that they kind of like added that tension, like we were talking about before, with having Rex and kind of reminding us like how serious of a threat this really is, this chip.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I have fallen into the camp of just taking everything that Tech says as like gospel. And I'm totally biased because he's my favorite of the Bad Batchers. So like, and he's super smart, but you're right. Like this is something that even he, you know, wasn't able to see what it would do. And, so it leads them to, or it leads Rex then to take them to Braca, because that's where he knows he can help them.
I'd want to just throw this in quick, because I'm not sure exactly where this, like if this would become a big conversation point or not, but you know, maybe I can just mention we can come back, or I don't know if you guys were going to talk about this, so just tell me. But what I really loved about just that way of approaching their situation, and I don't really think, in a way, I don't think the episode really focused on this as much, but this, for me, this was like the big gem in it, funny enough. Just theologically, was you can't just have it around. Like you gotta, it has to be gone, you know, and that very kind of blasé, almost like, oh, well, no, we're fine, we can just control it. And Rex like, it has to be gone. And what's funny enough, what instantly jumped in my mind, was the Red Lizard scene in the C.S. Lewis book, The Great Divorce. And all the justifications the guy's making when the angel's basically asking, can I kill that thing for you? You know, and he's like, well, no, I don't want to put you through that much trouble. And it's just all the, and plug in whatever sin it is. You know, the thing where it's like, well, you know, I'll just kind of, you know, hang on to it. Oh, look, he's gone to sleep. He won't bother us anymore. And I don't know, it's just all of that popped in there the moment that they're just like, just casually like, oh no, it's cool, we're different, you know, and Rex is like, no, you're not, it's in your head, we need to get it out, you know. And I don't know, I really thought that was a really cool thing to kind of meditate on, just you know, avoiding the near occasion of sin. You know, like if maybe you can't go down that street anymore, you know, maybe you really have to you know, not have anything to drink anymore, you know. So just whatever it is, I just thought that was a really interesting kind of, I wrote down, Pelagians need not apply. Like these guys, they can't just pull themselves up from their own bootstraps. Nope. If that chip wants to go, it's going to go. And we see it, that tension building with Wrecker, and we haven't seen a hint of it with the others, but it's like, how many bumps on the head will it take before theirs start going too? So I thought that was a neat way to kind of address all that.
So I don't know if this is taking the analogy too far or not. Well, before I get to that, I think you're absolutely right, and you're talking about this, but it reminded me of Jesus saying, you know, if your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. You know,
yeah.
Of course, he's not meaning that literally, but you know, cut away anything that causes you to sin. You know, it's the moment that we decide to just coexist with sin or evil, we're done. Like, you know, there's no way that we can on our own power just keep it in check. The analogy though, and I really don't want to take this too far, but there's a certain analogy to baptism happening here too. If you want to consider, again, this is just a reflection here, but I mean, if you take the inhibitor chip as a concrete manifestation, say, of original sin, you know, and they all have to, and Rex,
that's cool,
who is, you know, someone who's already gone through the death to self, or the baptism death, you know, and then come through that and experience that pain and that struggle, sin, even as he, struggled to not shoot Ahsoka and all of that in season 7. But he's sort of the saint. I use that term loosely. That is leading the Bad Batch to go through the same process of that baptism and death, and then come through the other side.
That's interesting.
That's
cool. I have another take on it, so maybe I'll wait until the end to kind of discuss that. But what I was going to say is, Mike, that's so interesting that you brought up the red lizard dragon thing, because we had kind of one of those at the start of this episode. We had Ruby, and she was partially red, at least.
I didn't even think of that. Oh, it always connects to C.S. Lewis.
Cool. Yeah,
That's
Angela,
so cool.
we'll come back to your take when we get there.
Yeah.
But that, either way, I mean, I think that's an important thing to just reflect on. Again, how Star Wars can kind of frame these things in kind of exaggerated ways, I guess, if you will. I mean, concrete ways, but it all can be kind of a metaphorical, kind of spiritual kind of reflection as well, if you take the time to sit with it. So Rex takes them, or leads them. He actually takes his own ship, but he leads them to Braca, where this is the starship graveyard, where all there's a bunch of Republic cruisers that have either crashed there or they're broken and they're on the surface. It's a junkyard. And so he takes them there because he knows that he can find a Jedi cruiser which would have the same medical equipment that was used to remove his own inhibitor chip, and is able to lead the Bad Batch to one of those cruisers. And before they quite get there, they see a patrol of the Scrapper Guild, who control the entire planet. So they're kind of the background nefarious kind of characters. They get to the cruiser, which is, of course, broken apart. And here we have a fun, terrifying for Wrecker, but sequence of him trying to cross this chasm, and the rope or the cable that they're crossing on, of course, breaks under his weight and falls and is almost eaten by this creature in the water. I wrote down the name.
The Kraken. Like, looks a lot like it.
The caption said it was a Dianoga.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And
really?
So that's an interesting connection, because that's the same creature in the trash compactor in the Death Star.
Yeah.
So
we never saw much of that.
Right. If you go to Wikipedia, you can see a drawing of it, and I'm not a fan. It's a creepy looking creature, essentially. And of course what you see in A New Hope is like the eye stalk at the very top of the creature. And what you see in this episode is kind of more where its mouth is, and it's trying to eat Wrecker. Poor guy.
By the way, I like how I just finished the first volume of From a Certain Point of View. And I must admit, I kind of skipped through a little bit of the Dianoga chapter, because I was like, I don't really need the backstory of the trash compactor monster. No offense, but I was just like, I'm good.
That's interesting though, because I didn't actually realize that was one of the stories. I think I've read a couple of them, but I don't know if I need that story either.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like this one, that one slipped past the goal.
Yeah, I feel like that book, though, they wanted like the most random, obscure side characters that they could.
Those are fun. They really are.
Get. So we should be getting a Return of the Jedi one here in a couple years on.
I was thinking, yeah,
anniversary. So they do, of course, get then to the medical bay, and I'm surprised that the equipment was able to function. Like Echo just kind of uses his droid arm and gets everything up and going. And I loved Tech makes some comment about the space not being sterile anymore.
Oh yeah.
And Hunter was like, yeah, do you really want to go back to Camino and do this? And he's like, oh, we're good. This will work. So, and so we get more dialogue here with Omega. which I thought was important to point out and important for the plot and the story, is that she's expressing her concern about this being a dangerous procedure. And she makes the comment that she's worried that if Wrecker, basically, if he doesn't make it, that she'll be left with no one. And Hunter...
Well, if all of them, because they're all going to go through it. So that was my understanding. Like, if all of you go through this and then something goes wrong, I'm just going to be alone.
Okay. That was not how I read it, but I think that makes sense too. I read it in that she was worried specifically for Wrecker, and if it didn't work, Hunter was assuring her that they would still all be together. At least the rest of the squad would. But thankfully that's not what happened. But again, I think it points out the familial relationship that they have, and Omega's worry and concern. Again, adding some tension on what's going to happen with this. And of course, before they can get Wrecker into the surgical pod, his chip does indeed activate, and his entire personality changes. I was reflecting, I again, as I listened to you guys last week, Mike, hashtag what is Order 66?
Yeah.
I was thinking about it because we do get a little bit of insight because of what Wrecker does.
Right.
And so, at least from my perspective, what I was writing down is that obviously Order 66 is more than just killing Jedi, but it includes killing traitors, but also sort of a complete personality takeover. And I sort of labeled it as unwavering loyalty to the Emperor and Order 66. But it's interesting because even like, and it's not just like if there's Jedi in the vicinity. He recognizes and uses his own memories of Clone Force 99 to recognize that they're traitors because they didn't follow Order 66. And then...
Well, they talk about it like right before his inhibitor chip activates. I think it was, who was it? Was it Rex? Or was it Hunter who says,
I think
like...
Rex and Hunter were talking about it.
Yeah. And they say like, this is what happened, and we let that one Jedi kid go, right? And then it's like, boop, Wrecker's on, and then he's like, oh, y'all are traitors. So
I'm just trying to think, is there a plot hole here, or one that doesn't really matter when it comes to Cut's situation? When they were on, I forget the name of the planet, but he's the deserter and everything, but he's a Gen 1 clone with a chip in his head. So why... I guess, did that not matter for that episode? Am I not supposed to ask that question? I wonder, because there wasn't any... It's not like Rex removed his, but Rex would have known that he had one, and they said that he had been through there.
I don't know if this is an answer. Well, it's an answer. I don't know if it's the answer. But every other clone trooper heard the order from Emperor Palpatine himself. So even... I think... I have to go back and look at episode 1, but...
Well, because 99 did, but they were all like, what's Order 66?
Right.
Like it didn't, but they heard it.
Right, but even like I'm thinking Revenge of the Sith, like every clone trooper that they show like has a little hologram of Emperor Palpatine executing that order. So it couldn't have just been like he flipped a switch that sent out a signal.
Yeah, that makes, I think that makes a little more sense. So maybe it was a directive.
I think of it kind of like with the Winter Soldier, where there's like a password that turns him on. I think Order 66 is the password, because when Hunter and Rex are discussing it, they say Order 66, and immediately after that, Wrecker turns on. So that was kind of where that connection was established in my mind.
You could do such a great ridiculous thing, like just Cut and the families at like Disney or something, or like Space Disney World or whatever. And it's just like. Like just someone's walking by like, I gotta get a bulk order of these pens. I gotta order 66 of them. Like drops is just something stupid. I'm sure someone will address it at some point. It's a big universe. But no, I think that's a good point. Yeah, because that's everyone we know of has, you're right. They had the transmission received, and he's clearly not keeping in touch, and hasn't been for a long time.
Right. He turned his phone off and he's on retreat.
Right.
But that does, I mean, actually, well, I guess maybe not in the Star Wars universe, but Order 66 happens more frequently than you might think. And I'm thinking, I guess, in our world, maybe not in the Star Wars galaxy, but like you go to a restaurant and you, if Order 66,
Sure.
like, you know, you don't want to be cut at a you know, Space McDonald's and Order 66.
Right.
So,
well, and by the way, and just one other quick, because at this point in the episode with Wrecker, he freaked me out a little bit. I mean, and like Angela said too, like, I mean, I think we all knew this was coming, and like you said, Father maybe didn't know how, but I like how fast everybody's like, uh-oh, like he's like the big lovable guy, and I think part of the reason this worked so well is because they have him going around breaking stuff, but he has that sort of jovial big kid attitude.
Yeah.
When he doesn't, it's like, oh, and I keep bringing Terminator up. I think it's because of Kevin Kiner's music with that heavier kind of electronic, style to it. I felt that vibe. It was very kind of like, spooky with, maybe spooky is not the right word, but just very, terrifying,
He had a kind of almost an Incredible Hulk kind of feel, but not in a he's on the Avenger side, but like he's
right
on the bad side. Yeah. So, Angela, I don't know, was this the point where you wanted to talk about?
I kind of want to wait until Wrecker gets better. Talk about it. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Which thankfully doesn't take too much time, but he does, pursue the group and for being in violation of Order 66, and calls them traitors, and then it focuses on Omega actually rescues Hunter, because Wrecker has Hunter kind of pinned up against the wall, and Omega distracts Wrecker, and then we have the dialogue between the two of them as Wrecker is trying to get Omega, and he's trying to get Omega because she's conspiring with traitors, which apparently with Order 66 also is a death sentence. So he chases her down, and Omega tries to reason with him and to appeal to his friendship and the familial connections. And of course, Wrecker is unable to do that. And just before he shoots Omega, he himself is hit with a stun beam. And then thankfully that's when they are able to get him into that surgical pod and then remove the inhibitor chip. And this scene was really touching, because this, again, we see the relationship between Omega and Wrecker, that, he's out of the surgical pod, but he hasn't woken up, and she refuses to leave his side. It was just exactly what you would see like in a hospital, of a family member who is gonna stay there until they wake up. And Omega,
it's fantastic
Omega does
voice
that.
acting,
yeah,
as well. I just really was very touched. I was that was what made me cry, honestly, is the way that she delivered that line, because it put me back, as you were saying, in all the positions that I've been in with family like that. So
yeah. Well, and I mean, like, she doesn't move. I mean, she falls asleep with her head basically on the bed where Wrecker is. It's it was very, very touching and well written and well done. And then thankfully, of course, he does wake up, and so the rest of Clone Force 99 all go through the same surgical process and get their inhibitor chips removed as well. Wrecker apologizes to Omega at this point for what's happened, and of course, this is what I was talking about earlier, is that I was impressed with Omega. Basically, I mean, absolutely forgiving him as any as family, and she of course knows that he wasn't in control of his decisions either, as he was trying to kill her. And we have the popcorn come back as sort of that like that signal that everything's good. We're all good. And then, I mean, really, then that's kind of where the episode ends. Rex heads off, and with the assumption, or our assumption is that he's heading off to kind of go back and join the larger fight. And what that means, we don't know, but we might see some of that coming up. And Hunter is still determining what is best for his squad. And then it ends with the Scrapper Guild noticing Hunter on the cruiser and informing the Empire. So it kind of leaves us on a bit of a cliffhanger, but I imagine next episode will be quite intense with the Empire marching in.
And I think there was also that line that Hunter says to Rex at the end, "If you're ever in a bind, you know how to reach us." To me, I wondered if that was supposed to foreshadow something that's coming. Either, I mean, I don't know if they're gonna do a season 2, but but that would make a lot of sense. Just to, maybe if Rex is involved with some kind of fight against the Empire, that would be a very like climactic moment, right? To have the Bad Batch fighting against the Empire, fighting against Crosshair, Rex is with them, like, have that kind of a moment. So I wonder if that's where things are heading. And if that kind of line was foreshadowing that. But
I think that very likely.
Well, and I think I absolutely love the show. This wouldn't be a criticism, but I feel like, this is why I'm more or less assuming this is going to happen. But next episode is episode 8, which would be the at least 4th episode in a row if they don't have some kind of loop back to Crosshair, Tarkin, Camino. Like, there's been nothing about any of that for 3 full episodes, I think, now at least. So I'm having fun with each episode, but I think that's, you do have to come back to that. That being said, if my math is right on this, that's sort of the hinge episode next week. I mean, that's right in the midpoint because there's 15 episodes. So that'll be kind of interesting. I think to have them have this sort of landmark reached, right before that midway point makes a lot of sense. You don't have to worry about that, anymore. So yeah, it'll be kind of cool.
I wouldn't be surprised if the episodes start to pick up too in pace and in intensity.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really glad that they stretched this out over the longer or the more episodes, because it's been nice to just kind of enjoy the episodes and not feel like we're sprinting.
And they've really established, I think they've done a great job establishing them individually as a group. With her, she's very much a member of the squad, and it's it just, whatever they all go into now, they go into as the unit, and it just works, makes sense, and they've established that, I think, really well.
Angela, I will throw it to you.
Yeah, well, as y'all were talking about metaphors, right, for this whole journey with Wrecker and the inhibitor chips, for me, where you saw theology, I kind of actually saw mental health situations, because that's something that I'm very interested in due to personal experience and other things. One of the reasons that I was gone off the show is because of a medical situation that I had to take very strong medications for. And one of the side effects actually is relevant because it was basically, just strong steroids that affect mood. So like every day at a certain time, I would burst into tears and have a panic attack for no apparent reason because I was taking this medication, right? Messing with my brain chemistry. And some people, that is just a daily occurrence for whatever reason. Another, and that it changes your mood. In other words, it completely changes how you feel. Some people have bipolar disorder. Some people have, I used to struggle a lot with panic attacks, anxiety, addiction, is another thing too. Like if you have an addiction, it can really change how you behave towards people if you're what you're addicted to is in danger, right? If you can't get that anymore. So for me, just the concept of seeing Wrecker have the most need, right? It was the most urgent for him to remove his chip, but he also had the most hesitancy about going through that process. And he also had the most challenges on the way, right, to get it done. And he needed, as you were saying, he needed his team's encouragement. He needed his team's positive peer pressure. Mm-hmm. He needed the support of others to get to the point of actually getting it removed. And so I thought from that perspective, that yes, that I could definitely see your metaphor as well. And, mine isn't perfect either, but it was just what came to mind because of personal experience and other things. But just seeing the people that we go through, that we have in our lives go through that, and whether we're going through something like that ourselves, just how important it is to remember that we need those people in our lives that we talk about this a lot on the show. We can't isolate, right? Mm-hmm. We can't isolate ourselves from our community, from our family, from our friends, because there are some situations that we can get into where we don't recognize how urgent it is to get help, right? And that is something that can get worse and worse as time goes on. I think of it as an inhibitor chip, kind of like, there are those triggers, whether it is a mental health condition, whether it's medically related, whether it's an addiction, but there's just those things that just trigger your mood change or your, whatever it is, and your behaviors, and you may not even realize it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I personally picked up on that, and I appreciate that can be used to kind of talk with people and about with kids. If I had kids, I would definitely kind of talk with them about that too, about the importance of having your squad with you.
Well, and I was just looking here at Romans. I couldn't remember where it was exactly in Romans, but Romans 7. That very encouraging section where you get that little window into Paul's struggles, which we don't know exactly what all it entailed. If it involved some aspects of more mental health stuff, or there's overlap, obviously, a lot of times with the spiritual fight. But when he says, "What I do not understand, for I do not do what I want, but I do what I hate. Now if I do what I do not want, I concur that the law is good, so now it is no longer I who do it, but the sin that dwells in me." And he goes on talking about that back and forth all the time. I do what I do not want. And it's this tension of he's not claiming like the devil made me do it. You know what I mean? Like, from his standpoint, he's accepting the reality that we all have that personal responsibility, but he's recognizing this baggage, this tension, this albatross, this cross, the thorn in his side he talks about, and that can take so many different forms. And so I think, any way you look at it, I think there's some really cool connections with a show like this where they have so much to draw from. Nobody's just a one-trick pony with just which is funny because I think at first some people were maybe a little critical of the characters. I think everybody's really liked it, but I think there was that little bit of some people I think were a little concerned about, like, Hunter's this, Tech is that, Wrecker's that. And it's like, well, yeah, but we're seeing, I think, pretty quickly there's a whole lot more to each one of them. And so I've really enjoyed that too. Seeing these different layers of their individual struggles too is really, really cool.
Yeah, I think, I that's one of the reasons why we love the show. And what we continue to talk about it is that Star Wars and these shows are ways that we're able to then have those larger discussions, whether it's about virtue and vice or whether it's about mental health. You could have this conversation with someone who's watching the show, and you could use the inhibitor chip, like you said, Angela, and say, well, my inhibitor chip is depression or anxiety or insert vice here, and that could launch into a discussion on the need for your squad, the need for support. But one of the things too that I wanted to point out that I think is absolutely crucial is that before Clone Force 99 even decides to, they've been talking about this, but what pushes them is Rex. And Rex is not just a random person who walked into the cantina, but he's someone that they know and that's someone that they trust. And so just like anything, if we're struggling with, depression, anxiety, or whatever sin that we're struggling with, we are more able to reach out and get help with someone that we know and we trust. If someone's, that we don't know just kind of shows up and says, "Hey, you need to go get help," we're not gonna respond as we would to someone who we trust, who wants to lead us, and we know that wants to lead us towards health and happiness. So I think Rex plays a good role in this too.
Yeah, and just to clarify for maybe people who might not know like Catholic teaching all that well, like when Father's saying like whether it's anxiety, depression, or whatever sin, like we don't consider mental health like conditions to be sins,
Correct.
right? So that's not like those are two separate categories, right?
Yep.
Mental health and sin. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. I was sort of mentally dividing Angela, your analogy into one box, and then
exactly
the theology analogy into another box. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Depression or the mental health things are in no way sinful. There's something though that is part of our human brokenness, and that we can get help for and heal from as well. So,
and I hope I think I said the word overlap. I did want to point that out too, that it's because they are distinct, but there can be certain things, where there's overlap or there's kind of triggering both ways, but yeah, they are distinct. So good point. Yeah.
Yep. And yeah. And they do relate though. I mean, because we are human beings in body and soul, I mean, our mental health affects, what we do and we act and vice versa too. So, we have a kind of a holistic look at the human person too, but,
well, that's why even like psychology, I think it's not just about brains, you know what I mean? Like it's not just a chemical, it's the soul, which is much more diverse kind of.
Well, and
sometimes difficult to pin down.
Yeah. I mean, and one of the things that I often tell people as they come to me and are, expressing whatever frustration in their spiritual lives or, whatever sinfulness that they're experiencing, often I will just talk about, well, are you sleeping well? Are you eating well? Are you taking care of your physical body? Because, if you're stressed and not sleeping well, that ends up just making you more vulnerable and likely to engage in something that you don't want to do because of that sort of thing. But then, vice versa too, that if you're doing well and you're praying and you're getting your sleep and you're eating well, it helps on a mental and spiritual level as well. So it all ties together.
Can I turn myself in on a 30-second sort of like dashboard no, I don't know what it was, like Star Wars show confessionals. No, I just and again, like every one of us has had a situation somewhat like this, but just one that happened just a week or so ago. And right to what Father's saying, like there had been a buildup of just stuff with my daughter where it was just driving me nuts, and she just wasn't listening, and like other things happened, and I was in a sort of an angry mood, and then the dog did something dumb, and I just yelled at him, and it was just this like, Beatty, get in that, and it was completely disproportionate. And again, like we've all been there in some way, shape, or form, but like the moment it happened, I was just like, what in the world? And you do that whole thing where like, what, why? That was not proportionate to that. And you see that the importance of nobody's perfect. And obviously, we don't want to get ourselves scrupulous, but it's a struggle, right? For all of us, as far as like, the slightest little thing can set you off if you're already kind of primed for it. And then if you have some sort of completely out of your control, biochemical aspect, and I have a lot of family members who have different ranges of different struggles they have with that kind of thing. So that's very near and dear to my heart too, of just like, you can't, sometimes you just have to work around it, and help someone with that cross, so there's the squad. We keep coming back to the squad. Yeah. So crucial.
Yep. Well, and that's exactly what we've seen in Wrecker. I mean, he's had there's a biological thing happening, but it's been building up until the point where it finally just kind of broke and he, acts acts like the villain because he's finally acting with the inhibitor chip. But
Can I throw one thing in there too? Because I forgot to. I don't know if we mentioned this yet. But wasn't that neat what he said about how he tried? He was telling her how hard he tried to fight it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which was neat because you don't see any of that, but like there's this interiority too of like, and you don't doubt his sincerity, you know. So like there's something interesting there. I wonder. It'd be neat to see with Crosshair. If we, I'm sure we're going there. I don't know if he'll be redeemed. That's kind of a Star Wars trope. I'm okay with it. Although I gotta say, he's probably he's the character I like the least in the history of Star Wars who's on that threshold. So shame on me. It's like I don't really care if Crosshair gets saved.
The fact that D. Bradley Baker described his voice as like a serpent or a snake, it just makes me wonder if he really is going to be redeemed.
I wonder. I don't know. He's a great Imperial.
Yeah.
But I think
hey, so was Darth Vader.
Yeah. But going back to your point, I mean, I think that what Wrecker experienced is definitely something that we could all just take and sit with. That, I mean, you know, we often, especially if you're in that position of the mental illness, you know, you don't want it, and yet often it's beyond our control, and that's where, again, going back to the Bad Batch, yeah, the squad comes in and is able to help, and of course, human life isn't quite as neat and tidy as they make it in the Star Wars universe, but it's still a way for us to then describe and talk and grow in our own healing and process and all of that. So yeah, I think this was a fantastic episode. Thank you for that insight, Angela. I really appreciated that.
Yeah, it's important for us to, you know, it's because it's not easy, right? It's not easy. I think for anybody to say, hey, I need help.
Yep.
Right. So we just got to keep talking about it.
And again, I hate to keep like harping on this, but that's what makes these stories in Star Wars so prevalent, is that they are ways in which we can talk about it. It reminds me of the Pixar movie Inside Out, and where all the emotions are personified, and like I know that I've heard of like people using that to try to get kids to talk about, you know, what they're feeling, and I think that's a brilliant way to present it in a way that kids can understand it and then verbalize, you know, what's going on inside of them and their emotions, and able to kind of bring that out and talk about it. So all of these things, I mean, that's one of the many reasons that we love Star Wars. Do you, either of you, have anything else that you wanted to add before we wrap up?
No, I'm just glad they decided to keep Wrecker on the show. For a second there, I was worried they were going to let him go. Oh.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
he's still with us.
He's great. Okay, well, that is it from us. Listeners, of course, we want to know what you thought of this episode of The Bad Batch, and so you can let us know in various ways. You can email us any feedback at starwars@sqpn.com, and you can comment on our Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, and you can tweet at us, and we're on Twitter at SQPN. And now, of course, we would like to take a moment and thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Wars, including this week Jacob D., Jason G., Richard S., Tony A., and Marty K. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Wars and all the shows that we do here at StarQuest. And if you'd like to join them, you can do so by going to sqpn.com/give. Also, be sure to subscribe to the show if you haven't already on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or your favorite podcast player. And you can find us on YouTube. Just search for the SQPN YouTube channel and be sure to hit the bell to receive notifications for new episodes so you don't miss a single one. And you can find all of our previous episodes by going to sqpn.com/Star Wars. And we will be back next week as we take a deeper look at episode 8 of The Bad Batch. So until next time, Angela, Cialana, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Wars.
My pleasure.
And Salacious Crumb, thank you for joining us as well.
I'm not going to do the laugh. I was so going to do it, but kids are asleep. Maybe I'll record it and just share it with the fans.
So, Mike, great to have you.
Thanks so much.
And once again, I'm Father Andrew Kinstetter. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.